Welcome to Deprogramming with your host, Terry Lynn, the show that explores mind control tactics used for millennia to shape our thoughts and beliefs. We dive deep with experts to understand the harsh reality of what is really going on and how to unwind the damage. Here's your host, Terry Lynn.
All right, welcome to the show. This is Terry Lynn with Deprogramming. Today I have with us my friend Carolyn King. She is an empowerment coach, and we're going to have a great discussion about ways that we can kind of just get through some of these programs that we're all indoctrinated with. And she has some real unique skill sets that you'll see that we're going to tap into her wealth of knowledge. But for this show, we're going to be talking about programming in all its forms and how it takes power away. It gives it to the one who's controlling the narrative. Be it the COVID program, the Savior program, the White Picket Fence program, the Way to Success program. There's a lot of different programs. It doesn't matter because it's all meant to take your inherent power away and give it to an idea that does not serve the highest you. It may feel like it serves you in the moment, and it may feel like it serves you totally. But if it's a program, like some of the ones I mentioned, let's say, it's not really serving the highest you. And so there's some kind of mental gymnastics, I guess you might say, that we have to go through in order to understand those differences there. And sometimes the line is very fine. So Carolyn, you're an empowerment coach, and I wanted to talk with you today, merging the bipolar concepts of mind control and empowerment to hash out some ideas and get practical application of some of the material that we're going to talk about today. You and I have personally worked together on a few projects, and what always impresses me about you is the ability to stay in the now. You know that power lies in the now. You also have a knack to empower others, sometimes just to hold a certain, I would say, magical frequency of space. You have definitely helped me in my emerging of my current skill sets. And so I've personally benefited from some of your work. Your abilities are many, but I wanted to specifically focus on how a person who feels, let's say, manipulated, or maybe they don't even know they're manipulated, controlled, and maybe powerless, can get to the point of standing in their truth without reservation. And that's kind of the encapsulated focus of today, is how we can stand in our truth without reservation. And so I wanted to welcome you to the program. And if you wanted to introduce yourself and just say hi, whatever you want to say about yourself, you can go ahead and do that now.
Okay. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to be live and to share, whatever comes out. I never know, even in sessions that I do, I never know what's going to come forth. It's whatever is needed, wanted and needed in the moment. As you said, I like to stay present in the moment. So about me, I think I tell people I'm everybody's grandma because I'm the mother of 3 adult children. I have 12 grandchildren, and I now have 8 great-grandchildren. And I think family and relationships are the gift of being alive in this time that we're in. And this time that we're in is a very precious, special time. I'm very excited to be alive, and to still be alive, I should say. I'll be 78 years old next month in September. And I am, really blessed to be alive, to be healthy, to be still doing my work. My work is coaching people and empowering people that I've been doing since 1979. So I have had a lot of practice. I've worked with and talked to many people, and hundreds, if not thousands of people. I've led seminars and worked with people on in group basis. So I think that when it comes to talking about programming, that you were right when you said some of us don't even know that we are programmed or have been programmed. because we're living in kind of an alternative world where everything is not as it seems. And we don't know who to trust and what to trust, from mass media, from our entertainment, from music, from our education system, from our health and wellness system, from every single thing that we are living in right now could be said is a lie. And we have been programmed since birth, since we were born, because our parents were programmed, and their parents before them. And there's none of us that haven't been programmed in one way or another. And the secret to deprogramming, in my opinion, is discernment. I would say the word discernment is what comes up for me, to be able to tell for yourself what's true and what's not true. And the way that you can do that easily is just test your feeling, test your heart. Like what rings true for you in your heart of hearts. You know, when you ask yourself a question, see, we do have innate intelligence, and our innate intelligence knows everything. And the thing that keeps us programmed is that we don't check into our inner self. We listen to our parents when we're young. We listen to teachers when we're older. And we listen to our peers all the time, from the time we're tiny, and when we get married, or when we have friends that we hang out with, that we resonate with. Those are the people that influence us and continue to use their programs on and around us. So it's almost virtually impossible to be alive in this day and age and not be programmed in some respect. Like, what's expected of me? What's expected of me in my business, my job? Who do I need to be being when I'm working, when I'm with clients or customers? Who do I need to be being in my family when I'm at a family gathering? When I'm with, people that I love but think differently than I do? Do I speak up? Do I say what is in my heart, or do I just allow the program that they're in and speaking to run me and to run what's going on in that moment? And it's a pretty tightrope to walk. It's pretty crazy, because when you start to realize the programming that you are living under, then you start to say, okay, how do I get out of this? How do I deprogram myself? And how much responsibility do I have to deprogram those around me, to let people know that is not true. That's not true. That's not truth. That's not, what's real. And so you start to talk to people about what resonates with them, what feels like the truth for them. And everybody's truth might be slightly different, but in reality, our truth all stems from who we really are. And who we really are, our whole species comes from love. Like, who we really are is love. When we're connected to our higher power, our higher consciousness, we really love, honor, and appreciate each other. And one of the major programs that's been going on right now is the divisiveness, trying to pit, men against women, Catholics against Muslims, Democrats against Republicans, and, right against wrong. I mean, every single face, even right now, there's this whole sexuality thing that's shifting people's programming. And there's just so many opportunities to be programmed, thus giving us opportunities to deprogram ourselves. So I said a lot, and
oh my gosh,
I didn't know what I was going to say.
Hopefully, you are in the flow. You generally are in the flow. And I could listen to you talk for a long time, and I have. Anytime that you and I have gotten together, and we're friends, when you and I have gotten together, I've had the privilege of having you tune to my energy and frequency and what I'm kind of feeling and going through. Like you say so much, and you just said a lot. I don't even know where to start, but that was beautiful. And I loved how when you said we brought out the point that we're all from the very beginning programmed, and it's a matter of knowing who we are inside, knowing what our perception of truth is. And I love how also you brought up when we're out and about and in the world, where's that line of knowing how to let others know, how did you say that? That it's not true, or letting their programs run you, or
Yes.
not. And so I find that very difficult. It's a very difficult thing for me. Something when you were
I would
talking,
say it is for most
I
people.
remembered.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me. Most people are that way. Most people just want to be liked and to be appreciated and to be known. We don't want to be different. We want to be part of the group that we're with, whatever it is. And so we don't want to run up against those belief systems that people have, the programming that they've bought into. Because we bought into it too at one point in our lives, and so when we see another truth, then is it our obligation to let people know that we think differently, or should we just keep our mouth shut and go with the flow with what other people are doing and believing, and then do we just try to hang out with people who have our similar belief systems, say, I'm not going to talk to those people anymore because they think different than I do, or they believe different than I do, and I can't convince them otherwise. So I guess I'll just hang with people that have my same belief systems or my same kind of deprogramming or programming, beliefs. So it is, like I said, a tightrope to walk, because we always want to be loved and liked and honored. And so we want to be careful what we say to whom. Yeah.
Yes. That is a kind of a sticky situation always when you're in social groups. And I err more on the side of people's programming doesn't usually rub off on me. I'm usually the one who is different and the one who, is pretty outspoken. And that's the part of it for me that is harder to navigate, because sometimes that's not always, the best thing to do. It's not always the wise thing to do, but to know when you can be different and when you can just, let that person go with their line of thinking, even though you might know different. But what I want to hone in on right now, because you brought it up, and I think it's the gist of where we're going, is how we can stand in our truth, how we can know what really our true true self is, what our truth is. You said it more beautifully than I can even say it. But how do we get that to that point where we can understand that what might be running in our head at the moment is not ours? It's a program from somewhere, sometime. I'll give you an example of recently. I've been getting these memories back, and one of the memories I got back was when I had to have been something like 2 or 3, because I was riding one of those little scooter things, going in the hallway of the apartment building that we used to live in when I was about that age. Actually, no, I would have been more like 4. And I had an imaginary friend, and her name was Mary. And I'm pretty sure I got to ask my mom about this, because it just came up the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, Mary was my friend. And I'm telling you, Mary was real. I don't know who Mary was, but Mary was real to me. Mm-hmm. And I got shamed out of Mary. So that was a program that maybe was running from my mother, that no, we can't do that because that's not real and that's kind of weird and it's not mentally healthy. And so I got rid of Mary, at that age. And so, we have our own intuitions when we're very young, and it just seems like And children are so intuitive. And it seems like the indoctrination of our well-meaning parents takes a lot of that intuition away, of knowing how we really feel. We're crying or we speak out because we feel a certain way, and it gets squashed constantly. And so that's unless you change that pattern's going to continue through your life, really. And you're going to get to the point where now we're adults and we don't know how we feel. We don't know how to check in with ourselves. So do you have any tips or tricks on how a person would maybe just check in with themselves once in a while? Or do you have a daily practice that you do to kind of clear out the rubbish, let's say, and just kind of center yourself into your own truth?
Well, in my life, at my age, I have come to the place where all my time, when I'm not interacting with another person, all my time is that self-introspection, or what I call, meditation, or like I live my life in that connection to higher consciousness, which is what I call source, or God energy, God frequency. And I can always tell when I'm in that frequency and when I'm not. But remember, it has taken me years to get here. This is not something I did overnight. But I've always been a seeker. I've always been looking for truth ever since I was an adult. Well, I'll tell you, ever since I got divorced. When I got divorced at the age of 33, I said, who am I? Because I wasn't a wife anymore. I was still a mother of 3 small children, but I wasn't a wife, and I wasn't in that family relationship anymore. So I had to look at who am I and what is my life about? What do I want out of life? So I started searching, and my searching focused on personal growth and development, what I would call personal growth and development, and introspection, and self-awareness. Like, I had to be aware of myself in all situations. And this is, if I were to give you an answer to your question of how to do that, I would say it's important to look at the effect you're having in the world around you. So the way that I learned to be with other people was to pay attention to and notice when I said something, what was the reaction over there with that person? Could I tell that they agreed or disagreed? Could I tell that what I said might have upset them? Or could I tell that they shut down? You know how you'll be saying something and sometimes people's eyes just glaze over and they don't, they're not listening or not getting they're not resonating with what you're saying. So when that happens, if you are always paying attention to the effect that you're having in the world, because whatever you're doing, however you're being, you're having an effect in the world around you and the people around you. And if you start to care what that effect is, if you start to pay attention and care the effect that you're having on your loved ones, for instance, or on your friends and around you, then you will get more and more self-awareness. You'll get more and more aware of the person that you are inside. Like, how do I want to be being? What am I committed to here? Do I want to have a friendship here? Do I want to make a difference with that person over there? Or do I just want them to understand and hear what I'm saying? Is it about me? Is it about, me telling them what's truth or what's not? Or is it really about me listening to them and getting their point of view? Because I'm a coach, I listen. I'm an excellent listener. And because I listen for what's going on with that person over there, so that if they tell me their story and I can really get it, and when I mean get it is that I listen and I let it in so that I experience it. Like if that were me, I get their pain, and I get their sorrow or their hurt or their upset or their whatever is going on with them. If I get it and I can let go of it after we're done talking, I get it and I let go of it, then that relieves some pain over in another person. that will allow them to let go of maybe some stress or upset or some pain and sadness around whatever they shared with me. So I think it's important to be in the world and look at the effect you're having with people around you, and how you really want to be with people. Like, who do you want to be being? Who do you want to be being with your mother? You know, what effect do you want to have on her versus what you want to get from her? Or if you want to try to change her mind about something, you see? So, does that answer your question? I think it does.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we're going to get into it more, but I just wrote some notes down while you were talking, so I didn't forget some of the stuff. The support. So, let me start by saying this. So, when you go through your life, and especially when you're, in your adult years, and you start to see patterns, if you're even a little bit aware, you should start to see patterns. Or else you can, if you become aware at some point, look back in time and notice patterns that you've seen throughout your life. If you notice patterns, I guarantee you it's not everyone else that's created those patterns, it's you. It's a pattern that you've created. And so what I've done is I've seen some really strong patterns in my life, and I'm like, okay, I can't deny that this is a pattern. And I also can't deny that I'm the common denominator. And so now the work begins. First is the acknowledgement of what pattern or program you have running, whether it's something that was instilled as a kid, or not, or the world. Well, usually a lot of it starts as a kid, but whether it's from your parents, the upbringing, or the world, there's a way that you coped with whatever that was, whatever that stressor was, whatever that situation, circumstance was. You coped. And I can also guarantee you that you coped in the best way possible for you. It wasn't wrong at the time. Now, when it becomes a pattern, you haven't unlearned your way out of it, then it might become a problem. But when I work with clients too, my coaching is generally around health and wellness, but the eating part of it, eating psychology and that kind of thing. I talk about this with clients. Whatever their patterns of behavior are, that was a safety mechanism. There was something that made you safe. There was some reason why you did that, and there was a darn good reason why you started doing that. And there's no fault in that. But now it's time. Now it's time to realize how that started and how the pattern is not serving you in other situations. You needed it then, whatever that behavior was, and now you don't need it anymore. So just to become kind of aware of that, and I wrote down support needed, because we need supports as we are evolving ourselves. And you were talking about how you work with people as well, and how you do that, and you take some of that burden, and I've felt that from you working with you as well. We need to have support. We can't do this on our own. We cannot isolate and try to figure out how to evolve. We need other people. We need people so what I do is I find people to mentor me, and I do this intuitively too. Like, I'm drawn to people in some instances that have qualities that I want, are doing things that I want, have accomplished things that I want. And then I'm like, I try to get close, or I try to, or I just outright hire them, if that's the situation. So you have to have people in your lives that, I think there's a rule of like five key people in your life. And 3 of those should be people that are kind of higher than you, or kind of doing things in a more evolved way than you, that you want to aspire to. These are people that can kind of pull you along and help you and support you. And then you have the other 2 that maybe one is at your level and one you're helping, right? So the vast majority of people that we hang around with and that we associate with, for the most part, should be ones that raise us up, that help us, support us. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere anytime soon, right? So as far as these programs that run, whatever they are, it's a matter of finding people who have gotten across that that line and can have something to offer you. We are all creators. I wrote that down as you were talking. So we are going to create what we need and what we want. And so you had mentioned, what do you want? And I think that's the first question, is to identify goals. Goals are big. And when I do my work as well, what are your goals? Like, what do you want? You have to have that clear in your mind. If it's not clear in your mind, your brain doesn't know what to deliver to you. The universe doesn't know what to give you. It's, you give this fuzzy little goal, it's going to give you a fuzzy little answer, So write things down. And telling a person is one of the biggest things you can do. And that's hard when you tell somebody what you want to do and where you want to be, where you want to accomplish, especially if it's somebody that's going to hold you accountable. Then, it's an automatic, thing that runs in your mind. It's, I got to do this, even when it's a weak moment. So, I also have a note here. Oh, yes. Taking control back has the consequences of self-responsibility. You can't blame anyone else. So once you start taking control back, so you have all these patterns that are running, and I say, well, I do this because of this. Well, my parents this, or my husband or wife this, and, the kids are doing this. Once you start to take control, now you have responsibility. And I think a lot of times people don't want that responsibility. They prefer to be comfortable, let's say, and not have to be responsible for making a change. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely would.
So
I agree with the part about needing mentors, obviously, since I am one. And since I love to work with people that are searching and looking for what's next for them, and to keep, raising their vibration. And that's what you mean when you're talking to people that you're being mentored by. They have, they're operating at a higher frequency than you, and you admire them and want to be like them. So you want those kinds of people to mentor you. And I agree that it's important to look at, what do you want? What do you want here? What is your end result? What's the goals that you have? But before you can do that, before you can look at what you want, I believe you need to look at who you are. Who am I really? What am I? What is my purpose here in life? Why am I on this planet? And what do I want to leave when I'm gone? Because I know none of us live forever. And we all have goals and aspirations to accomplish. And lots of times it's in the era, I've noticed, it's in the era of making money, doing a business, losing weight, having a relationship. Those are the kinds of things we want to attract to us. But before we can do that, all those things, we really need to look inside ourselves and say, who am I really? And what am I here to accomplish on the planet? How can I make a contribution to the world? How can I affect people around me? Because it's not just all about me. It's not all about my goals and what I want. It's about, what can I give back? No matter how young or old we are. And I know that my whole life now is about giving back. I'm really not, I don't have the kind of goals that I had 40 years ago or 20 years ago even. The goals to make money and to be successful and to be respected. I've accomplished those kinds of goals. Now what I want is to make an impact in the world, to make a difference, to contribute to the planet, not just to individual people that I coach, of course that, but I want to leave my mark. I want people to be empowered. I started out empowering women back in the 70s and 80s because I knew I was a woman who needed to be empowered. I was disempowered as a child by my father. My brothers abused me, and I was very much disempowered. And in order to find my true self, I had to find where I could get empowered. and what courses I could take. Usually it was about studying, reading, taking courses in self-development, and it was all about learning who I am first. And when we figure out who we really are, then we can see what our natural gifts are that we have to contribute to the planet. Because we have natural gifts. Probably my best natural gift is listening to people, and contributing by giving people my energy and my love and my support. That's who I am in the world, and that's what I have to give. And if we look at the difference that we can make for other people, then all of the things that we want happen. It's really true, that you get back 10 times what you give out in the world.
That's a biblical principle too. Your cup overflows in that case. What came up for me when you were talking there is when you're figuring out who you are, initially what came up for me was, I didn't like who I was. And then what I realized 2 seconds later after I thought that thought was, no, that I wasn't looking at who I was. So what I was looking at, bear with me for a second. What I was looking at first was kind of what the world saw of me, how I presented myself to the world. I didn't like that. But how I presented myself to the world was this kind of convoluted aspect or idea, really, of who I was. It was what my mother wanted of me, what my father wanted of me, what my sisters wanted of me, what my friend, the world, just trying to like fit into all these, molds, which I didn't do very well, which I'm glad for. But, that's what I didn't like. I didn't like the person who was trying to satisfy all of these controlling type of ideas of who I should be. Until I became super mature as of late, really, and now it's becoming kind of fun because now I kind of know, and you've helped me with this. Now I kind of know who I really am, at least to the extent compared to what I knew before. I really know a lot more now, and the reason I state it that way is because I know next year and in 5 years. I'm going to look back on now and say, oh yeah, you didn't have any idea. Like I'm going to know so much more about myself. So there is sometimes a confusion of who we are when we first start to look at ourselves and say, well, yeah, but I did this, that, and that. Ooh, I must be bad. No, wait a minute. just like, I was talking about with, the eating psychology and, just different, coping mechanisms that people do when they have trauma and things like that, is that's not you. That's not you. That's how you coped in the moment. And so, and then it's become an expectation maybe from people around you or the world. And maybe that's why you're not as happy as you'd like to be or as fulfilled as you'd like to be. And now that I'm really stepping into who I really am, that is where it gets fun and adventurous, and I can forgive myself for some of the decisions that I made. That weren't optimal, but I did the best. We all do the best we can at the moment. I guarantee you, I promise you we do. We all do the best we can at the moment with what we have, with what we understand.
Exactly.
Right. And so the one biggest thing is you have to decide. And I like how you brought that out, is decide who you are first and then what you want. But you have to make the decision that you're going to do that. And it's scary. It's scary. Right? Why is it scary? I don't like at this moment right now. I don't know why it's scary.
I would say it's scary because we have to let go of who we thought we were and who we were being. In order to become who you really are, you have to let go of everything that's not you, everything that is not real for you, that you brought on from your parents or your whatever programming you had, whether it was your siblings or your peers, in school or whatever, your friends, because we have to, and letting go is scary because no matter what you're letting go of, you know, when you let go, we identify with what we've been doing and who we think that's who we are. Like you said, we believe that that's us. Mm-hmm. And to let go of that is scary because we don't know who we are on the other side of that. Like who would you be being if you weren't, you know, afraid of, you know?
You just nailed it. You just nailed it. Oh, I'm trying not to cry here. Oh my gosh. It was scary for me 5 years ago or so when I decided to be who I was going to be, no matter what. And I walked away from the control, and you kind of feel like you're depending on your situation. It could be, you know, a very large feeling this way, very strong, or maybe not so strong. But for me, it was a blank slate. You know, for the most part, I had a blank slate in front of me, and not many people, I don't think, can really do that. That's really hard, and you have to get to the point where what's happening right now is so unacceptable that on the other side, jumping off that cliff right there and not knowing anything is way better than staying right here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Boy, you nail it. You always do. You always nail it. I had another note. Here's a good question. Okay. How does one know if they're acting of their own accord or from the influence of another? So let me encapsulate this a little bit more. When we are in this floppy stage of not really knowing who we are and what we want, and not really fully understanding perhaps the control programs that we've been under, how does one know if this new decision or this new way of being or acting or dressing or whatever it is really part of getting to know who you are, and it's coming from you inside, what you want, what's best for you, without hurting another, of course, or if you're just being influenced again by who knows what?
Well, I would say the answer to that is to trust yourself, to learn to trust yourself. And your higher self is always operating 24/7. You know, your higher self and who you really are is always running. And we have to push that away in order to go with programs that are not truly who we really are. We have to push away our authentic self. We have to push that to the background. But our authentic self is always there. So we have to learn to listen to our authentic self, and we have to trust our authentic self. How many times have you thought, oh, I really need to do that, I should do that, or that, you know, how many times have you thought, has your intuition, as you used it, your intuition tells you, do this, and you go, no, I don't want to do that, or that's not going to work. I've tried that before, it's not going to work. So we push away our intuition. We push away our natural knowing. We push away that part of ourself that is really authentic and who we really are, because we think we've done it this way and we need to continue to do it that way, even though that way has never worked for us. You see?
But it's going to work next time, right?
I know.
Force it to work. I think it's getting out of the head, you know, for people like myself who are real heady, you know, intellectually driven. And this can be fun. So let me just bring this out. And for anyone that this helps, great. So I've been practicing, and how I've been practicing for the last probably 3 years, good 3 years. And it's in supersonic mode right now. When you talk about trust, because there's still this idea, this issue of, yeah, but I don't know if it's really coming from me or not. And so practice. So I'm practicing, and sometimes I'm not right. Sometimes it is coming from some kind of control program. But for me, what works for me is just to be silent for a moment, check into myself. Whatever that means for you, it might be different for me. or vice versa, but checking in with myself and just setting the intention is really what I do. I set the intention of tapping into my higher self, this wisdom that I know that I have somewhere that's been masked and filtered and shamed and all that, and asking a question and getting the answer, and then practicing going with the answer and seeing if, was I really listening to my intuition or was I not? And so play with this. I know a friend of mine who, she plays with this with parking spaces, and she says almost every time she can find that parking space, except when she doubts herself. And she doubts herself usually at this point only when there's someone else in the car who thinks that that's kind of a crazy idea. So that trust process of just trusting the answer and not going, oh yeah, that probably wasn't right. Because sometimes the answers are like, no, that can't be it. And so you just have to practice with it, and boy, it gets really fun. I know some people that use, different ways that they check in with themselves, really is what it is. Pendulums or, certain muscle testing, like the muscle testing. I never got good at that. But for me, I'm finding that this is working and I like this. And so trust and then practice. And it's okay to be off a little bit, right? It's not the end of the world. I wouldn't start with big things, but I think that's how we can start to begin to get good at knowing if we're being influenced by an outside force or if this is really coming from us, and because if it's coming from your higher self, it's not going to hurt anyone else.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the more we do it, like you said, practice is the key, because the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the more that you trust yourself, the more you're going to trust yourself in the future to go with what your inner self says is the way to go.
Yeah. Whew. Okay. I have this other point here, and it piggybacks off of what we were just talking about. Practice needs to be a part of taking sovereignty back. And really what we're talking about too is personal sovereignty. We need to unwind damage and learn to take ownership of our own thoughts, decisions, and actions. So taking ownership. So it's really easy to blame, some other force, some other person, circumstance, but when we start to take ownership of where we are in life, I understand, okay, let me put that aside for a second. Where we are in life, and take responsibility for that, and also take responsibility for our next decision, and understand that if we're going to keep doing this pattern the same way, we're going to keep getting the same results more than likely, and that's our decision, and that's okay if you want to do that. But you have to understand and take ownership of that. And also by not making a decision, by letting things just happen, that's a decision. You have to take ownership of that as well. So this brings up a point that I often wonder and I try to grapple with. And that is, we're all responsible for what we bring to the table, right? But nobody here is 8 years old. We're all mature adults. So we have children who are in certain situations and circumstances that they really don't even have the mental capacity to get through, the skill sets to get through. So I sometimes get a little confused as to how much responsibility we really have and when that really kind of kicks in, I guess. I don't know if my question is well formed there, but children can't possibly be responsible for what happens to them when they're growing up, right? And that's my thought, and the programs that were run, whatever happened to them. But what they bring into adulthood and how they handle those problems is their responsibility, is how I usually would say that, and how I believe.
Yeah, what came up for me as you were sharing that about children and about 8-year-olds and when we really, before the age of reason, they say, and when we can reason for ourselves versus we just kind of mimic what's going on around us. But I do think that different each individual person reacts differently to the same circumstances. Okay. For instance, I have 5 siblings. There's 6 of us in my family. And so we were all raised by the same parents in the same home with the same rules, with the same, environment, I should say. And how we dealt with it is different. It's completely different. And I've worked with lots of people that I've coached, and I hear how they reacted to a similar circumstance in their life. Like, I'm going to use sexual abuse as an example. Okay. Some people who are sexually abused young, in their early years, let's say before the age of 12, because they say the age of 12 is the age of reason, when you really know right from wrong. Okay. So I have worked with people who've been abused in those early years before 12 years old, and different people have processed that abuse in different ways. Some of them have been damaged more by it than others. And some of them they've become different in their adult years about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, some of them have gone into incest recovery programming and worked on themselves. Some people have become reclusive or have not had relationships with the opposite sex because of the abuse they've had. And some people are in complete denial that it ever happened to them. So in other words, they won't talk about it. They won't deal with it. They just live their life on top of it, if that makes sense. It's there. It happened to them. Yep. And at some level, they know it, but they're in such incredible denial about it that they won't bring it up to process it, and they don't want to deal with it. So my point is towards what you said about how we can, deal with things that happen to us as a child that we aren't really responsible for. I think that's what you said. We're not responsible for what happens to us. That's accurate. Those children that are sexually abused are not responsible for attracting that abuse. I don't believe that they attracted it somehow or some way. I believe that it happened in their life, and then as they grow up and mature, they get to deal with it. They get to decide for themselves how they're going to process that and how they're going to go on in life, how they're going to deal with it in life. And different people process it in different ways, and some people don't process it at all. Like you said, some people stay. I believe there are people who are born into programs, live their life through the programs their whole entire life, and die with that program and don't ever get above it. They don't ever rise above the programming that they've had, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at who you are. That's why I said you got to figure out who you are as a person. Like, am I the kind of person who's going to get above all of the damage that's been done to me psychologically, emotionally, physically? I've been damaged. So what am I going to do about it? Yes, I'm not responsible for it. I didn't cause it. I didn't create it. Or if I did, now I got to take responsibility for it, even if I did create it, even if I was the aggressor in a situation, in an abusive situation, I still have to take responsibility for that. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I get to decide, who am I really in this lifetime? Who do I want to be being? Do I want to be a victim? Do I want to be someone who makes a difference with people? Do I want to be a contributor? Do I want to be generous and gracious and loving and kind? Or do I want to be mean and vindictive and get even with these people, who abuse me or whatever it is? So we have that decision to make. And I like the word you use, sovereignty, because we all are individual sovereign human beings. And we're all connected at the highest source. We're connected by love, by that love of God or that love of source. That's who we are. That's where we came from. That is us. There are lots of people who never tap into that in their entire life. That's my point. There are people who do, and people who want that higher consciousness. And there are people who don't, and they never will. They can live and die and not want to rise into higher consciousness. That's their choice, and that's okay. We have to get to the point where we don't judge others for the path they're on, and we don't judge whether or not they're raising their consciousness to the level we want them to raise it to. Are they good enough people for me to be around because my consciousness is here and theirs is down there, and I don't want to have them in my life? That's fine. That's a choice we make. But we are all sovereign individuals, and we get to choose who we're going to be and who we're going to hang out with in life.
Oh my gosh. More bombs dropping. So true. I guess I look at it like when we are not just at the age of reason, because frontal cortex isn't even done
at 12.
Developing, until we're 20 something. I heard the latest is 24. So let's say mid 20s. So mid 20s when we realize, here's the plate we have. This is the plate we were served. And maybe throughout the last decade or so of that 25 years, we're coming into this responsibility age where we started to make decisions on our own, but we didn't realize they were based on a lot of these prior programmings, control mechanisms and such. And so that's kind of forgivable. So once the frontal cortex, this is my own opinion, once the frontal cortex, we mature in all ways, like our brain is done developing. And then I feel like, okay, here we have the plate, and we start to realize, oh, look at this plate that I have. Some of it's your stuff, for sure. And some of it's not. It was just what you have. This is what and everybody has a plate. We all have a plate. And I'll tell you what, if we all stood in a circle and everybody threw their plate in the middle, you take yours back, because we all have a plate, and you look at somebody else, you go, oh no, I don't want that one, because you don't know what people are dealing with. So there's that time you get to decide, like you said, from there, how am I going to deal with this plate? Do I just want to kind of go like this and say, no, I'm just going to I'm going to be over here and, do these little things and not rise above that, which is okay. Like you said, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, because some people perpetuate these programs while they're hurting people. That's not okay. That's not what I'm saying. Or you can decide that you're going to figure it out. And that's who I am. I'm going to figure it out. And I'm not going to stop figuring it out, even though some days I swear I won't be able to go another day, but I'm still here. And so, you just have to decide, what you want. Like you said, you make a decision. And there's so many levels and so many things to it that we have to go through. It's, who are you? What do you want? Getting support. I love how you said love. So people often say God is love. Actually, love is God. That's even in the scripture that God is love. It's not something that, and source is love. Like that is source. Love is source. Love is God. So that is what we can tap into, and that's why when we tap into that, and I said earlier, when you tap into that answer and that intuition, that's your higher self, is it's never going to be hurting anyone else, because you're tapping into the God consciousness, if you will, or just love. The program of love is what it is, right? I just made that up now. So it's the program of love, and that is where we want to be. Those of us who are trying to get through this matrix, or just get through this, thing we call life, and trying to evolve in whatever ways that we decide we want to, right? Whew. I think we made some great progress. When you and I get together, we always, when we have a discussion at hand, whatever it is, you always deliver, Carolyn. You always deliver. And I so appreciate you in that. And, you are the epitome of never giving up. And you've told me straight up, you're never going to give up. You're just going to see this thing till the end, and I applaud you for that. Is there anything you wanted to say as we close? Anything you want to add, or something that we might have missed?
In conclusion, what I would say is the most important thing is self-awareness, learning who we are, and discovering what our life purpose is. And I love how we're wrapping this up with a big bow, is that love is all there is. Because that's a Beatles song. Do you remember that song back in the 70s? Love is all there is. I really think that's the essence of life, is love is all there is. And when we come from love, we can't make a mistake. We can't do it wrong. And you can ask yourself with every decision you're about to make, am I coming from love? And you won't make a mistake. Thank you, Terry, for having me. I so appreciate who you are and what you're doing in the world and the difference that you're making. And I'm honored to be your friend, and I'm honored to be your partner and to have interviewed with you. So blessings to you and everyone who hears this and sees this. May they have a blessed life. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to have you on, and thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You've been listening to Deprogramming with host Terry Lynn. To connect to Terry or to check out our other shows, head to livesource.global. And don't forget, hit the like, subscribe and share buttons. This show has been brought to you by Source Light Productions.